All right, welcome everyone to the July 2020 Phoenix and Denver Tableau user group. Uh, my name is Michael Perillo. I'm one of the Phoenix Tableau user group leaders. We're going to get started. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's just kind of jump into it. As some housekeeping, all participants are muted. Please do use the Q&A section to send any questions. If you'd like to chat or provide some feedback or just tell us how great we are, go ahead and use the chat feature within Zoom. This session will be recorded. It will be made available probably sometime later today, tomorrow, up on Tableau's YouTube channel. If you don't have one of those bookmarked, I'm sure we'll send out an email afterwards thanking everyone and providing relevant information where you can get a copy of this deck as well as the video. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to go through some quick introductions, a couple of announcements. Hopefully, if you joined us early, you saw some really cool things going on with the Tableau community, with e-learning, certification, Iron Viz, and much more. Today, we've got some great presentations and demos and all things Tableau. So we'll kick those off in just a moment. Many of you are probably not familiar with the Phoenix group, so I want to introduce ourselves. This is our Phoenix leadership team over on the left. Ann Jackson, Josh Jackson, Justin Hinkfoot, Jeff Park, Suraj Shah, and myself, Michael Perillo. I've been using Tableau almost a decade now. Tableau Server, Tableau Desktop, Prep. I'm one of the Tableau ambassadors for user group. Really excited to be teaming up with one of my favorite people, two favorite people really, Denise and George out of the Denver Tableau user group. We appreciate them being willing to participate and teaming up this month and vice versa. Love working with both of them. Hopefully you enjoy today's presentation and all the content that we have to offer. So a few announcements we'll kind of go through. We're going to talk about a Tableau mentorship program, a Tableau talent finder, how you can collaborate with us. We've got a great program platform within the Phoenix user group that's open to pretty much everyone across the globe. So kind of want to get you engaged. And then we'll dive into what our upcoming meeting looks like for the rest of the year. If you do want to connect with the Tableau user group, we are leveraging Slack. If you're not familiar with Slack, no worries. We've got a link in the bottom that talks about what Slack is. It is a collaboration platform, allows you to chat and collaborate and share files and all of the above in a nice mobile-friendly format or within the web. If you'd like to join our group, there's a shortcut link, a bit.ly link over on the left. Bit.lys are case sensitive, so just be mindful of that. And hopefully we can get you engaged and have some good conversations. So I'm going to turn this quickly over to Adam so we can talk about this Tableau mentorship program. And Adam.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to just introduce you to the Tableau mentorship program. I have coordinated with Vinod Kumar and Mark Bradburn. Basically, what we're doing is we're trying to align people and make sure that people have the opportunities to learn Tableau and work together in order to enhance their skill set and feel like they're part of something. It helps us grow as a community and it helps us challenge each other a little bit. I currently mentor a couple people right now and it's a great experience. Right now, we launched a couple weeks ago and we started to pair up people. So we have 28 mentors and 83 people needing mentoring at this point. We're accepting both mentors and mentees for pretty much every skill set that would be applicable to Tableau. In addition to that, we have paired up already over 40 people at this point since we started pairing up people on Sunday. We'll be working together to create more resources, including Slack workspaces for everybody involved to make sure that they even have more resources and an opportunity to connect and ask questions and make sure that everybody is working together and happy with the program and the mentorship. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in next month's meeting. We'll have a little bit more conversation, but if you're interested in becoming a mentor, or you're looking at upskilling and needing some help and want to be a mentee, go to the mentoringmeetup.com website. There's a couple forms that you can fill out, and you can both be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. So go ahead and check that out. All right, up next, I'm going to turn this over to Mark, talk about the Tableau Talent Finder, and then he'll kick it off, our presentation from there. Mark.
Cool. Yep, thanks, Michael. So the Tableau Talent Finder is a Tableau public-based initiative really focused on trying to connect those in our Tableau community who have been impacted by COVID-19 financially. So essentially, if somebody's been laid off due to the impacts of COVID-19, we know that we have this great community out here. So the Tableau Talent Finder, that URL that is available is where you can go. And the way that the Tableau Talent Finder works, there is a Google form that if you are looking, you can, sorry, one second. What you can do is go there. There's a Google form. You fill out some basic information about yourself, your career experience with Tableau. The report updates daily, and we'll pull your information into it. And then the idea being that if you are somebody that's hiring, you can go to this page and see everyone that's currently looking for work and work that way. There is a second tab to this dashboard that actually pulls in information around jobs that have been posted on Indeed that have the keyword of Tableau in it. So it can be kind of that one-stop shop for those looking for work that have really been impacted by COVID-19. And if you are somebody that falls into that category, or you're somebody that's looking to hire, I really would recommend giving it a look. There's a lot of great folks that are available in there.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Just as a reminder, our upcoming meetings, we've got our next one for Phoenix, August 20th. We'll also meet September 17th, October 22nd, and November 19th. All of these will be virtual meetings. If you're interested in signing up and joining us, you can go out to the website, usergroup.phoenixtug.com, and feel free to join us. Appreciate it. All right, so I'm gonna, again, hand this back over to Mark and Megan and kick things off. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and Mark, you wanna take it?
Yep, we'll be sure to introduce ourselves as we go through. I'm gonna share my screen really quickly, and we'll start talking. Just let me know if, Michael, you're not able to see the slides that I have prepped.
Looks good.
Cool. All right, so my name's Mark, and I'm here with Megan. We're going to be talking about our Tableau Explorer program. It's a training program that we have here at UChicago Medicine. High-level agenda of what we're going to cover, just background information around the program, as well as who we are at UChicago Medicine. Then we'll dive into the program in more detail, kind of provide an overview there. And on the back end, we'll have Megan cover her experience as a Tableau Explorer here at our hospital. So some quick background. First, who am I? I'm Mark Conley. I am a business intelligence lead at the University of Chicago Medicine. My role is really focused on driving and enabling our engagement with business intelligence here at this organization. I do have previous work experience in clinical research, And my education background includes a bachelor's in bioengineering and a master's of engineering in bioinformatics, both from the University of Illinois at Chicago. I'm also currently a co-lead for the Tableau Virtual Healthcare User Group. And I have some contact information there if you have any questions. And don't worry, Megan will also introduce herself when we get to her slides. Our health system, UChicago Medicine, is a health system located on the south side of Chicago and throughout the broader Chicagoland area. We have 4 inpatient facilities, 11 ambulatory care facilities that are throughout the area, about just under 1,300 licensed beds, 12,000 employees, and you can see some of our other numbers there. So we are a health system taking care of patients. The team that I am on, our data and analytics team, does sit separate from our IT team, but we are very dependent and work very closely with our IT team to make sure that we're getting the appropriate data and building the appropriate things for our analytic and reporting needs. We do lean on our security and privacy teams to make sure that we're doing everything that is appropriate when it comes to sharing the types of data that we're currently working with in the healthcare setting. We do have a data governance committee that also helps kind of oversee how we're using, whether it be Tableau or down on our data warehousing side as well. But our team really is a pretty decent sized team of analysts that are working together with clinical leads and other types of roles in the organization to make sure that we're sharing meaningful data, high quality data that people can trust to really improve the care every day of the patients that we're treating. This is a Tableau meeting, so it should be worth us talking about our instance of Tableau here. We deployed Tableau Server back in 2017 across the enterprise. We are currently on 2019.4 for our instance of server and desktop. We're averaging around 25,000 views quarterly, so that's a single click into a workbook that we're at. I sit within our data and analytics team, and a lot of our focus is on the quality reporting for the types of reports that we're building up. But our server does support many different departments and initiatives across the organization. So these can be in the clinical setting, it can be financial, supply chain, HR, patient experience, and then even things like research will leverage our Tableau server instance. And then this kind of sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today. I think many of you are probably aware of the viewer, explorer, creator license model and roles. What we have at UChicago Medicine, we follow the same kind of deal, that we have our viewers, explorers, and creators. The content that we're going to talk about today is really going to hone in on those explorers, so the folks that are using our Tableau server for their analysis versus having a desktop license or just viewing dashboards that have previously been created for us. And we try to make sure that we're covering educational needs for all of these roles. So there are things that exist for viewers, explorers, and creators, but today we're going to hone in specifically on the explorer content. All right, so setting the stage for the Explorer training program. This is really what I'm hoping to cover today as we work through. I'm going to provide a high-level overview of the program. We'll walk through how do people enroll. Once they're enrolled, how do they learn? What's the kind of learning process look like in learning environment? We'll talk about how we test to make sure that people have really taken in the lessons that are covered and are feeling comfortable using the tool. And then we'll hopefully have an ideal segue to Megan to talk about what it looks like after completing the program and some of the things that you can do after that. So at a high level, our Explorer program, our Explorer training program, is really focused on helping staff learn about the Tableau server web authoring functionality. The idea here is that explorers are connecting directly to data on our Tableau server to create workbooks or perform any ad hoc analysis that they need directly on that server, so without the use of the desktop license. We do also cover things around like best practices for requesting data, our existing BI policies and standards, as well as what our production review process looks like. So we try to cover all of that for staff. The one thing I do want to call out within this program that we're talking about, we don't actually address Tableau desktop functionality. or the process of publishing reports from desktop to Tableau server. The other thing that we didn't initially have right from the get-go, but is a bullet point that's been very key as we've had this program continue to run, is that by completing the program and participating in the program, it doesn't actually influence any prioritization or assignment of any existing or future data requests. So this is really focused on the training side of it, and we leverage any of our existing prioritization processes separate from the training. All right, some quick KPIs, again, high level. We did kind of launch this back early 2019. We've had 125 staff that have enrolled in the program to date, and it's a pretty widespread of different areas of the hospital that have had at least one staff member participate. We have had some groups that are a little bit higher than others in terms of their use of the program, but there's a pretty widespread in different roles. And I'll talk a little bit about who's enrolling on the next slide. To date, we have 43 people who are at least explorers. Some have already or have moved on to being that creator desktop role, but 43 at that kind of level to date. Things to know as we walk through this, it did take around 80 to 120 hours to build up, and we definitely iterated through the first several cycles of this. But we have it in a state now where it's about an hour, if not less, a week to support. So wanted to provide some high level numbers to have in context as we go through the rest of this today. So who can join? This actually started as a pilot with a wait list. Now we're in a state where it's actually ad hoc and it's open to anyone who's wanting to learn Tableau and wanting to move away from old legacy reporting processes or systems. Think Excel and trying to get away from that. And truly anyone in the hospital is able to sign up with how we have this structured, and you can sign up just through an email or ServiceNow. We actually have a request process there, but either way, if the intake comes in, they'll reach out, or I will receive that, and I get them set up from a permissioning standpoint, and then they get sent this email, kind of snapshot, it blurred out the names of the people in the email. That allows them or gets them connected with all of the resources that they need to begin their training. And this onboarding email gives them direct links to an onboarding video, our onboarding training environments, as well as provides kind of a slide deck around the program and gets them connected with me as well. Once they're enrolled and they've received that onboarding email, they'll navigate to our SharePoint. It's not the flashiest thing in the world, but it's got a lot of good content in there. And this SharePoint page is set up primarily focused on training videos that we have. And the videos do go in an order, so you do build up. And I realize I didn't mention this, but everyone that's enrolled in this program, we assume they have zero knowledge of Tableau, and we start from there. So from what is the Explorer program to how do you connect to a data source, how do you build a view, and we build up on that. And the training videos are videos that we've recorded in our environment with our training data, so they can kind of see exactly the same thing that they're working in their environment, and not worrying about if they're matching up different versions based on what is on Tableau's public site, and we want to make sure it aligns with what we have. One of the things that we outline in that onboarding video and onboarding content is a recommended training timeline. Those people who are participating in the program are doing this in addition to their full-time role, or they're having it prioritized as something along the lines of professional development and need to make time. And we know that they don't have 40 hours a week to dedicate to this. So we typically recommend about 8 weeks to 2 months. So 2 months to complete the program and provide this kind of high-level outline for them of what types of things they should be doing and how they'll progress. And we'll talk a little bit about some of these things as we go, but wanted to provide this that we do give context because it is an ad hoc program. But I have had folks that completed in a couple weeks, and then I have others that take several months depending on prioritization of their work. When they are enrolled and they've gone through that onboarding and start following the videos, they'll get directed to our Explorer training project. And this is essentially a personal sandbox. This has our training data sources there. I do have a screenshot at the bottom of how we set up the permissions for it. Essentially how this works in practice. If you're a new explorer, you'll get directed here. You'll see that there are data sources. You'll see nothing else until you publish your own workbook after connecting to that data source. Then you would see that, but you, again, would see nothing else other than your work and the data sources. The benefit, though, for me as someone overseeing this, I am an owner of this project. So I'm actually able to see the things that they're working on and can provide help if they're having any trouble along the way. We do have a whole bevy of different training data sources available. We started actually with this thoracic surgery training data. I will say none of the data that we're using is internal to our hospital. It's all publicly available or made up. We do have so many different roles and areas that people are coming to the program from. So we needed to make sure we had a pretty wide breadth of different data. So we have like the thoracic surgery, we have a murder mystery, like crime scene data set. The other thing that I didn't even have right from the get-go, but made a ton of sense when somebody asked for it, was uploading the sample superstore data set that Tableau has on desktop, but make it available for our explorers. So a whole bunch of different things. We do get input from those participating to find other things and continue to evolve that there. The one other thing that I wanted to highlight as people are progressing and they're using these training data and they're building in the training environment, we do have a standing check-in on our schedule. It's an hour block. If people have questions, they can reach out. The nice thing about this is depending on kind of the ebbs and flows of how many people are participating, if I have this time blocked, you may run into weeks where you actually get the time back. So it helps to have kind of that dedicated time to really, just in terms of like time management, but it is also an opportunity for those participating to feel connected and not just be thrown to a video and call it a day. So really wanted to call that out as that kind of human touch to the program that we have. Now, we're still in the learning stage of this. People are following the videos, they're reaching out if they have questions, but to complete the program, they have to do two other things to kind of close the loop on the program. One is complete a project, the other is a test. To complete the project, and the reason why we have a project is we found that having staff complete something that didn't have a pre-filmed video and solution guide to it really helped reinforce all of the things that we were covering in the videos. And we saw that when we introduced this project, our competency test scores went up. So it's something that's kind of stuck. We have added a few different options, and I'll show you what those projects look like. So an example here is looking at, again, dummy data on our thoracic surgery mortality outcomes. Have they improved? Have we've seen any types of diagnoses that have higher mortality rates? Is there any kind of variability? And the idea here is that somebody has to connect to a data source and build a dashboard that allows them to track that over time. The second option that we have, and this one I was really kind of excited about, it's a murder mystery. So the idea here is that they have to work with multiple data sources to find out who committed a specific murder. They have to use this data set or data sets to solve this, but then they also need to develop a dashboard to help kind of future crime solvers where they can review where crimes are being committed, trends in crime, and all of those types of things. But ideally, these two options for the project really help just reinforce the material that we're covering in this program. The next thing that I'll mention is after completing the project, they'll reach out to me. They'll say, "Hey, Mark, done with the project. Would love for you to review it." If it's something that they feel really comfortable with, I'll just do the review myself, and I'll give them kind of the green light. And I'm making sure that some best practices are being followed, and there's nothing kind of glaring that's kind of off with the project. Sometimes they will ask to review it in one of those check-ins. So we'll set up time to review that there. But assuming that the project looks good and everyone's comfortable, we'll then move to the skills assessment. And we do have a competency test that was developed here. And it's facilitated through Oracle. So it's just, like a learning management software that we have that is leveraging this. It's no cost to them, and the whole program's no cost to the people enrolled in it. I hadn't mentioned that yet. But what they'll do, they'll enroll, and then it's just a test that they work through. They have a little over 2 hours, 20 questions, and it's a random pool of questions, so they get to retake it if they need, and they'll get different tests every time they take it, and it gives the score automatically for us. So it really kind of helps scale it up, where if you had a whole bunch of folks that needed to take the test, they can all kind of take it on their own time and get the results that they need there. Well, all right. So after, and I'm going to start to kind of set the stage for Megan here. After they complete the test, they're then considered an improved explorer at the hospital. And what we'll do as an explorer is at that point, you're able to request to connect to any existing data sources on the server. You might also identify new data sources that need to be added and can request for those. And then the other benefit, obviously, is that you can continue to use your explorer skills to build, share, and then connect with kind of our internal analytics community. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan. And Megan, do you actually want to run the slides? I know we were going back and forth on this. If you feel comfortable with it.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. That's fine.
Okay. And I'll stop share.
So good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are joining from today. Okay. So I'm Megan Swice. I'm going to share with you today my journey, my work transformed after completing the Tableau Explorer program that Mark just shared with you. A little bit about myself. Who am I? I'm a registered nurse. I spent 5 years as a cardiac nurse at the Ann Arbor VA. Loved that position. And during that time, I completed my Master's of Science in Nursing as a clinical nurse leader specialty. Now that specialty really emphasizes connecting with microsystems to improve them, connecting and engaging frontline staff in improving their outcomes on their units or within their microsystems, and really leveraging data to make that happen. Following the completion of my master's, I landed in the role as a nursing quality specialist at University of Chicago Medicine. A little bit about my job role. My role is to engage nurses at all levels throughout the organization to change nursing practice related to patient outcomes. Some of the ways that I do that is by generating and using scorecards, graphs, and reports to communicate performance for designated units. One of the main indicators that I work on is preventing patient falls. We in the hospital don't want patients falling and getting hurt under our care. This team that you can see here is one of my exemplary quality improvement teams, the Fall Champions. They are engaged in owning this data collection process through our monthly fall prevention survey. We adopted this process from another quality improvement group, and when I first took it over, we had a paper process. I was able to enhance that by making it an electronic data collection process utilizing REDCap, which is a grant-supported HIPAA compliant data collection tool. And so I was able to make some improvements there. At the same time, you can imagine that, thinking about a paper data collection process, moving to an electronic data collection process, there were a lot of ways that this process could be enhanced. So I'm going to share with you my 5-step process when I first started in this role, working with the Fall Champions, of how I disseminated and communicated that performance data to those units and hospital-wide. So my first step was to develop meaningful visual templates. I used Excel. Once those visual templates were created, it really gridlocked us because it was a lot of work. You can see figure 1 shows, this is actually just a summary table of a full-blown manual data entry process looking at that data collection. Super labor intensive. Once that was built, for the whole year, we didn't want to be changing our data collection process because that was going to make this process have to start all over. After the data collection, I would enter or import the data monthly, so it was a little bit simpler once I moved that paper data collection process to an electronic process, and then I would have to generate graphs and reports. These were disseminated via PDF because those are easily accessible by end users, but I also disseminated an Excel where units could drill into their unit level data. For those of you on this call probably are very competent in Excel. Throughout healthcare, there's a wide variation in people's competencies around utilizing Excel, manipulating pivot tables, manipulating filters. And so this was something that was challenging for my end users to do on their own. So you can see I took a super manual process back in 2018. I made it a pretty manual process, so there was some incremental improvement there. But you can see on the bottom right of this slide, the number of data points that required, whether it was an export then being manipulated or manual data entry. It was a lot of data manipulation. And I would say that those numbers represent nobody's dream job. So I had some successes, but there were a lot of challenges pre-Tableau Explorer program. This process was incredibly time consuming. Every visual required manual updates monthly. To be honest, when this time of the month came around where it was time for me to generate my reports and get this data inputted, I would say a prayer, please let me be able to get this done. Please let me be able to get this done without having a lot of mistakes in my output because it was so heavily manual. When I sent out the reports, leaders had to filter through. They would see irrelevant data for their units. As I said, they would try to filter through Excel, but skills were highly variable. And so there were just still a lot of challenges. The biggest problem, though, was that I don't just work on fall prevention. So here you can see some examples of the other quality improvement work that I lead and am responsible for communicating performance on, including central line associated bloodstream infections, catheter associated UTI, and the falls performance that I already shared with you. So think about the process that I just described and then multiply that by 3. I had very similar processes in place for all of these quality improvement groups. It was an exponential problem. So in a nutshell, I was trying really hard to meet the job description that is in my role, but there were incredible roadblocks from the time, the errors that would come out when I was manually manipulating, the fact that the reports were inflexible. Once that data display was generated, there was not a lot of availability of my own time to be building new visuals for people to look. There were redundant reports, and it was really challenging for my end users to navigate or to provide a consistent way for them to see their unit level performance. Enter the Tableau Explorer program. So the first key to my success within this program was that time commitment and workload that Mark so nicely described for you. This was really feasible to achieve, in part because of that timeline. It broke things out. It made it so that you could take small chunks of content and work on it with scheduled check-ins, and it kept you on pace to meet that end goal. The second key to success for me were the variety of ways that the program provided content. So there was self-study, that timeline, achieve this. You could skip over things that maybe you already were competent in or understood quickly. There was interactive content, the recordings, the sandbox. When I went through the program, the sandbox, actually you could see other people's work. And so sometimes when I was working on the project, I'd be like, I'm just blocked. I don't know how to do this calculation. I don't really know where to look to figure out how to do this calculation. And sometimes I would cheat and look at someone else's work to see how did they do this. And then with that little nudge, I was able to push forward without always relying heavily on Mark and his team to help answer questions. In addition, the expert support is invaluable. It was so amazing to have, even just knowing that Mark was there, that hour on Thursday that we could come together and talk through some sticky points and get that extra practice. Mark also described the project, which I also believe is a key point for achieving competency. You can play around and do things that you're comfortable with in Tableau, things that make sense, but until you're trying to solve a problem, you're not going to push those boundaries to try to figure out what data display makes the most sense. How do I actually make this calculation work? So the projects give you a tangible way to practice those skills that you're watching or doing in small chunks. Finally, having an exam is also pivotal because it forces people to engage more intensely with the content than they would if they weren't being tested on it. I know that the exam pushed me to go outside of even our resources and start engaging with some of the Tableau resources that exist to fill in my weak spots. But the most important key to success was this data support and learning network from my fellow explorers who I can reach out to say, what are you doing? How are you leveraging this? To Mark and his team and learning from the data analysts and their very complex dashboards that they're building. But then also this group. So I've gotten so much exposure just by going into this Tableau Explorer program. So after the Tableau Explorer program, my work was transformed. You can see here 3 dashboards that I have completely moved into production. I developed these independently, leaning a little bit on Mark and his team for support when I was stuck on how to make something happen. But yeah, and this has happened over the past 4 months that I've actually built these reports and moved them into production, being used by end users. The data connection process is amazing. So when I actually first finished the program, the data connection process was a little bit more cumbersome, and it actually delayed my first venture into creating a dashboard. But Mark has created an Excel upload feature. And so this is amazing because I have my electronic data collection process. I export to Excel, and then that magically lands in my Tableau dashboards. I don't think it's actually magic. I think that Mark built some cool features to automate that process. But to me, as an end user, you think of all those hours of work that I was manipulating the data, it's literally like magic. The other benefit of having the data in Excel is that I own that data. I don't know how to code. I don't know SQL. I don't know how to query. And so I can own that data. When I'm building my dashboard drafts, I have that source of truth that I understand, and I can validate my own data, troubleshoot, utilize it to assure that the calculations are doing what I think they're supposed to be doing without having to lean on someone else to show me where that data lives. Another benefit is that we also can connect to existing data sources. So whereas in the past, if we're looking for a new relationship or wanted to dig into an out-of-the-box question outside of our normal kind of data collection, it relied really heavily on Mark's team to understand the request, the question that we're trying to answer, connect to the data source, get it back, try to figure out what the data means, build a visual. And oftentimes in healthcare, some of these relationships that we look for, out-of-the-box questions, they actually end in a dead end. There's not really a relationship, or it's not giving us anything that's actionable. And so having the ability to connect to existing data sources on my own allows me to explore those relationships on the back end, look for those connections or action points without having to utilize Mark's team's time. And if they're a dead end, I can just throw it out and there's no waste. If it's something that's real, then I can just start building that end user interface without, again, relying on Mark's team to do that. So here you can see a CLABSI prevalence survey dashboard. Some of the key aspects of these dashboards for me is that you build it once. I spent time on the front end building the dashboard, and now it's updating automatically. You guys use Tableau all the time, so that's not a surprise to you, but moving from such a manual process to one that inherently is updating your visuals and taking out all that manual work, it frees up my time to begin exploring other questions and enhancing the dashboards. Month over month, we can make little tweaks. We can add a measure based on the end user feedback instead of just spending all that time entering the data itself. Finally, Tableau has powerful filters. Instead of our users having to navigate pivot tables and filters in Excel, which can be really messy and error prone, they're just doing it in Tableau. And we use Tableau, like Mark said, across the board in our organization. So those universal tutorials that people are participating in then just applies to my dashboard. So it's also saving that need to train people on different ways of engaging with their data. I also have found that I'm using dashboards a little bit differently. Nurses love stories. And so using the dashboards to tell what it is that we're looking at, why it's important, where the data is coming from, and then what can we do to make these metrics better. And I found that my end users really like that additional context and kind of the storyline along the way. And then finally, you can see this is my third dashboard. This is a CAUTI prevalence dashboard. And you can just see here that I branched out into a few different visuals than my other dashboards. So building out my skill set a little bit more. So post Tableau Explorer, the benefits have been amazing. Simple export and upload process, saving time, using those visual templates that accommodate that new data without the manual updates, and then really empowering my frontline leaders to drill into their own data, to look for relationships on their own, the skills that are transferable across the different dashboards. And then I have more time now, again, to dig in for new insights, to amplify the things that we're trying to improve. So thank you to Mark and his team for taking me on this journey.
That was great. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Mark. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A panel. So I have a question on adoption. How have you seen kind of self-service analytics like this improve, and what does that roadmap look like?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. And then Megan, I would turn it to you just in terms of what adoption your experience has been with the specific dashboards you built. I'd say a lot of people really want to have the same type of experience that Megan just covered, where you have a little bit more control over that data that you're working with. You're the subject matter expert on that data. So you have a better intuitive understanding of it. But you also want to know a little bit more about how you could build your own reports and get to that time savings. So I've seen a lot of it. I think when we first launched this, we sent a couple emails out, and then everything else has been relatively word of mouth internally in the organization, and have really seen kind of an uptick of that. I know some of our larger groups, so we have a supply chain team that's relatively large. Any new hires, it's just like an automatic channel in to our program. So I'm talking a little bit in circles, but I have definitely seen adoption be pretty consistent. And I'd say now it's one of those things where people know if they're hiring somebody new that might fit in the role, that they can route into our program. And then the other thing too is we'll be meeting maybe on separate projects, our team collectively, and we'll help identify potential opportunities or potential staff that might get a lot of value out of it. So it kind of goes both ways, both internal word of mouth, and then us kind of keeping our eyes and ears out for those that might be a good fit. But Megan, I'd turn it to you in terms of what your experience has been in terms of the adoption of your reports relative to like the Excel files that you were working on previously.
Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits. The end users are saying that they love them. They love the clean visuals. They love the ability to drill in without the cumbersomeness of those Excels or the PDFs. We have KPIs, so Mark's team has whole pages where we can see who's accessing, how often, what days, where then I can maximize my processes to be reaching people at the right time, reaching out to people who are maybe not accessing to help get them up to speed or show them how to use the dashboards. So that in itself is really powerful. There also are, as people are seeing the work that I've done, people are reaching out to me. How do I do this? Can I build stuff? We need more visuals. And so I think that as people see how this can be successful, they also want to engage more with the program itself.
Perfect. All right, so there's quite a number of questions. I'm gonna have Mark and Megan answer those questions through the interface. So at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and take control back if that's okay. Great job. Thank you both. Appreciate that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and dive into some Tableau new features with Steve Martinez. So if you're leveraging Tableau 2020.2 or evaluating maybe some newer capabilities with the beta in 2020.3, hopefully we have some things that you'll enjoy. Steve, you want to take over sharing and kick things off?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to start my screen sharing. Right now, so I don't know, there we go, share, and we should be good. All right, well, thanks so much, everybody. It's so funny, I just turned on my video. I hung up some pictures the other night, and I just I just realized Bruce Springsteen's butt is right over my shoulder, so I think I'm gonna have to switch things around. It's a little distracting. But anyways, thanks so much for having me. If you guys don't know me, my name's Steve Martinez. I've been with Tableau for a little over 7 years now. I started as what at the time was called a solution consultant, sales consultant for Tableau in the Denver area. So I've been floating around the Denver area for quite some time. That's where I'm based. And then I took over a technical sales team for what we called at the time our Southwest District, which was Southern California, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. So spent a lot of time in Phoenix and possibly in one of your organizations as well. So, and over the years, I've presented at so many Tableau user groups. It's a lot of fun. I do it whenever I'm asked for Denver. I've presented usually a lot of times in Omaha, and then there's I think 3 different groups in Southern California. Unfortunately, I haven't been out to Phoenix yet for a user group. It seems like the timing is always off for me to travel out there, but eventually I'll get down there, I promise you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what's new in 2020.2 and then what's coming next. But I'm sitting here thinking about all the times that I have presented and just what kind of the world we're living in, these Zoom meetings. It's kind of funny, and it's just like, hey, remember when we'd have these things, we'd all get together in a room, in like a conference room in a hotel or at a company somewhere, get to see each other face to face and collaborate and start building relationships. Usually there's a nice spread of food out somewhere so we could snack along the way, and then I'll be your presenter. But now we have the new normal, and that new normal looks a little bit different. Now we're all working from home and teaching and babysitting and doing all that at the same time, a little distracting. You're on the hook for your own food today, unfortunately, but I am still your presenter. I just haven't been able to get my hair cut in a while. So anyways, hopefully we can make the most out of our new normal. What I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about today is, some of the features in 2020.2. One of them is pretty major, and it could be a little bit intimidating at the beginning as well. So, so I want to dive a little bit into that. I'm going to start with one of the easier features to kind of wrap our heads around. And so let me just bring up Tableau Server. So anybody that has Tableau Server today, one of the major features of 2020.2, 2020.2 was released a couple of months ago. And one of the major features is what we call metrics. It's a new content type that is now available within Tableau Server. So in addition to data sources, workbooks, views, dashboards, all those types of things, now we have metrics. And so here I have a dashboard that's, if anybody sat through a Tableau sales demo, here's just kind of our, what we called our bronze demo at the time, something just super simple demo that I wanted to bring up. Oops, sorry, I got a Slack call coming in. I apologize. But what we can do is start creating metrics, start looking at these particular dashboards and finding something that is something that I want to track, an individual metric or KPI. So for instance, now we have this I guess we'd call it a menu option up here for metrics. And the way that I can create metrics, if I just click on metrics, it's really just going to tell me select a mark to create a metric. Sounds pretty simple. So I'm just going to go, and anywhere on maybe this line chart, I'm just going to select a mark. And right away, it starts to wrap around a metric. And I can call this my sales. And this particular line chart is interesting because this particular line chart is actually leveraging 3 different measures within the viz itself. The location of the bar is based off of sales, so we're getting a sales trend. The color of the bar is based off of profitability, and then the thickness or the width of the actual line. I'm sorry, not the bar, the line. The thickness of the line is based off of, I think I said discount. Yeah, discount. So when I create this metric, right now it's saying, okay, well, sales is kind of the main thing that you're looking at here. So we'll just call this sales, but I can define it. Is the measure the sum of sales, or I could say, anything here. I have 3 different measures that are in the viz, so I can choose any one of these, but I'm going to stick with sum of sales. And the date dimension is based off a month of order date. And I just hit create. And what that's done now, it's created a metric for me. And it's done a couple of things. If I go and say, well, let's go to this metric, the metric, when visible in Tableau server, is going to look like this. So now we have this metric within Tableau server. If I just hover my mouse over it, it's just telling me each point in time how we're doing and what that is based off of. But the nice part is this is also really designed for mobile. So I'm just going to go ahead real quick. I'm just picking up my phone here, and I'm going to mirror my screen, and hopefully this all works. Here it comes up, and let me just drag it over here, and let me find my Tableau mobile app. So just by creating that, now you could see right here that I also have my metric available to me on the mobile app. And if I just go and open this up, I could see that metric very easily. I'm down, looks like 19.45% in December, which is my last data point, based versus November. So it's a month over month comparison. I could still drag along this and see what that comparison is looking like. And I also can do this adjust and compare. So I'm just going to click down here and say adjust and compare. And now it says, well, what are the date ranges that I want to look at? Maybe I'll just set this to all time. And I want to look at, what do I want to compare against the previous month? Maybe I want to compare not month versus month, but year over year comparison. And I'll show that comparison line. And I think that's all I need to do. And I'll go back. And now you can see that I have now my all-time. You can see the blue line is my sales, comparing against the gray line, which is the previous year's sales. And so I can easily guide along those. So it's just a great way for us to quickly and easily start to pick out the pieces of data that are important to us and visualize those and monitor them. So we're able to do that either through Tableau server or like you can see here on the mobile device. So that's how that looks. That is metrics, really cool features. Let me just go ahead and get rid of that now because now we're going to talk about something a little bit more important. It's going to take a little bit more time. And we have a ton of new features, honestly, but I just picked out like 2 of the biggest features within this 2020.2 release. It was actually a pretty major release, but one of them is kind of earth-shattering, and that is what we call relationships, formerly known as the object model. So I'm going to come here, and I'm just minimizing Tableau server, and I'm going to bring up Tableau 2020.1. Okay, so prior to 2020.2, this is what our world looked like. And I'm going to just look at our lovely Superstore data set. Here I have my orders, and I can look at my sales by state. Now, there's a couple interesting things here. One is that if I look down here, I see that I have 49 rows of data. Okay, so I've only sold a product in 49 of my available states. What is the 50th one? Well, that's kind of hard for me to pick out here, right? But hey, I got an idea. I can connect to another table that has all 50 states in it, and then that should suss everything out for me. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and take my orders table, and I have a state table here as well. So I'm going to join to that table. Now this state table is pretty interesting. Let me just show it to you real quick. It's just got our states. Don't know why it's taking so long. It's only 50 rows, or a little over 50, 56 rows, because I have Puerto Rico and some of the other areas like that. So I just have a state and our population, okay? And that is what our data looks like. So I am connecting it, orders and state. Now, if I did an inner join, it's still gonna say, well, grab everything that is in both orders and state. And I know that I've only sold in 49 states, so I can't do that. That's not gonna give me the 50th state. Maybe I wanna do a left join, or I'm sorry, a right join here. So give me everything, all the states, and then associate the orders to it. So let's give that a try and see if that's gonna get us there. And kinda, we now have 50 rows of data, but I just see this null state. I'm not sure what that's all about. It's really throwing me off. The other thing that's really important to look at is if I introduce that population metric that's in my state dimension table. Let's just go ahead and click on my population now. And you could see that now population, let's just look at population for Alabama, 299 million. Now that can't be right, right? So typically, and I'm sure we've all done in this past, you see a number that just looks a little bit too inflated to be correct. And you say, well, let's view that data, and let's look at the view data. And okay, I have 61 rows of data here. And because I've joined that state dimension with population in it, I do get that population number. Let me just scroll to the right and find it. Where could it be? Why am I missing it? Oh, there it is, population, boom. But for all 61 rows of data, it is replicating that 4.9 million number for population. And that's why we're getting that 299 million number population for Alabama. And so ultimately what we need to do is we need to do some type of workaround, right? I could say, no, I don't want the sum of population. Maybe, just give me the min of population. Oh, that will do it. And if I wanted that to persist, maybe I can write a level of detail calculation. That level of detail calculation would probably look something like this. Let me zoom in so you can see it. But the level of detail calc would probably be, let's call this state pop. And let me zoom out again just so I can move this a little bit better so we can see it. I'll shrink this and slide this over and do this. Boom, boom. And so our lovely level of detail calc would probably be for each state, give me the min of sale, or of population, sorry. And let's just end that level of detail calc. So that could be another way that I could go ahead and build out that calculation to be correct. And that's unfortunately how most, let me just add that state pop right there and we should see, okay, my state population is right. It's matching up with the min population. And unfortunately, that's how most people use level of detail calcs as a workaround to get past a problem with the data, right? The explosion of data that happens when we're joining a one-to-many or a many-to-many table. So I'd like to introduce relationships. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize 2020.1, and I'm going to now open up my 2020.2. And here we have the exact same view in 2020.2. And there's a couple things that I want to draw your attention to before we dive into solving this problem about population. And the first thing is that this interface is markedly different than in prior versions. And I don't want you guys to panic if and when you upgrade to 2020.2 and things look different. Okay, the first thing that is very glaring is, well, let me open this one up because this is a good one. If I open up a 2020.1 or prior workbook into 2020.2 and I look at the data source, I'm going to see this. Where did my orders table go and connected to my state population and all that? You just see migrated data, because this is more of a not a physical object, but an actual relationship and result set based off of all of our joins. Okay, so if it's just one table, then it's really just the result set that we're seeing here down below. But I can always just go ahead and open this up and see my orders table here. And if I wanted to, I can join my state table here, just as we did earlier. And I could, keep this, let's just do this one as a full outer, for instance. Okay, so even though now I'm seeing a data set down below, that's what this whole node includes. All right, so I can see that I'm joining some tables here. It's just made of two tables, and it's considered this migrated data set. Okay, so when you open up 2020.2, I don't want you to panic when you see migrated data. What does that mean? Where did all my tables go? Just go ahead and double click on it, and then you'll see your tables and your joins. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing that's different is, if you remember, it's in 2020.1, let me bring 2020.1 back up. You'll see that in the data pane, we have our orders table and the dimensions that are associated with it. We have our state table, the dimensions that are associated with it. And then down below, we have our measures and the orders measures and the state measures, and then just some random measures. All of the calculated measures and everything just land down below everything else. And that's very different than in 2020.2. So let's look at 2020.2. Now, I have this is 2020.1. I panicked a little bit. I'm like, wait, this isn't showing me what I expected it to. So now what we're saying, even though we have a bunch of tables here, we're seeing, here's our dimensions and measures. So if I go, and even if I join this together, just as we did earlier, and go back here. So now I'm going to see I have my orders and state dimensions and measures. They're not really called out. And just like before, we have our calculations. All right, so that's nothing different than before, because we're still using kind of the old way of joining data together as far as these joins. But I'm going to go ahead and just remove this join here for a moment, because the problem that we're trying to solve for is that explosion in population, right? The one-to-many or the many-to-many relationship that's causing us problems. So the level of detail in one table is very different than the level of detail in another table. So I'm going to come here, and so instead of opening this up and doing my joins here, I'm not going to do a join. I'm going to do a relationship. So in this case, I'm going to take my state, and you can see now we have what we call the noodle. And so I'm just going to drop my state on here and just say that, well, these two particular tables are related, in this case, based off a state. You'll see that nowhere did I say I want a left join, an inner join, a right join. As a business user, I may not even know what those mean. Don't make me make a decision on a left join or a right join or whatever. As somebody that really understands SQL knows that, hey, it really depends on what I'm analyzing have me determine whether it's a left joint or a right joint or an inner joint or a full outer. And the reason, and the fact that we had to make those decisions in the past was the reason why you may have multiple data sets going against the same tables, but maybe related differently so that you can get the right result set in your visualizations. So now we don't have to do that. I have my state. Let me just make sure I don't have it here. Okay, good. I have my orders and my state, and they're just related in some way. And now if I go back here, a couple of things happen. Let's go and add my population. You can see that I didn't have to do anything, any mins or level of detail calcs. My population is absolutely spot on. Tableau recognized that my two tables, even though they're related, are at very different levels of detail. And so it accommodates for that and does not explode that population number for me. Also on the left-hand side, things look very different because now I have just tables. I have orders, dimensions, and then down below orders, I have my measures. So these measures are explicitly associated with the orders table. Then I have my state table with those dimensions. And if I had any measures there, they would be explicitly associated with the state table. And then I have a list of other things. I have the list of in this case, generated calculations that are not associated with any orders or state table. If I create a calculation or a parameter or a set that is based off of just columns in the orders table, then that calculated field will exist in this list. And if I do the same thing for state, then it will exist under the state. All right, so we don't have that kind of blob of calculated fields down below. We associate them according to what table or tables that they reference. So if a calculation is actually a cross table calculation, we're grabbing pieces of information from multiple tables, then those calculations will exist below. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that things are going to change a little bit. Don't panic. It's pretty much all the same, but they just look a little different. But the power now is I didn't have to tell Tableau to go and do a min or write a level of detail calculation and then tell all of my business users, don't use the population field, use the state population field because that one's correct. Because when we do things like that, when we communicate those types of messages to our end users, they lose trust in the data. They lose trust in Tableau. And this is a way for us to really start, making sure that people can actually trust this data, that it is accurate. This is a very simplistic example of relationships in action. But I wanted to get this across. This is kind of Relationship 101. If you're really interested in relationships and how we can start to solve for much more complicated examples and problems, then I encourage you to do a couple of things. First off, you can always give us a call here at Tableau. We'll be happy to have that conversation with you. But I wanted to call your attention to something here. Let me get the right, disappeared on me, bummer. Let's do this. I'm gonna go to, we have, hopefully you guys have heard of Tableau Tuesday. So Tableau Tuesday is something that my team puts on. We've been doing it for, since the beginning of 2019, the second Tuesday of every month. We do a webinar where we try to tackle a deep dive on a particular topic, either a new feature of Tableau or maybe a misused or little used feature of Tableau. We do have one here from last month called Relationships, aka the Object Model, from June of 2020. It's 50 minutes long. It's got some really great examples of how we can solve complex problems with the relationship. So I encourage you to watch that video. And I encourage you to start joining Tableau Tuesdays. If you haven't heard of Tableau Tuesdays, you haven't been invited, send me an email and I'll be happy to invite you. We get about, 600 or 700 people a month on these calls. And then we post everything up on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We get, these recordings go all the way back from the beginning of last year. And we're gonna have a bunch of other, things on this, YouTube channel as well. We're gonna do Tableau Shorts, which are like just little 5 to 10 minute demos and tips and tricks. We're gonna have a whole playlist that's just what's new. So we'll dive deeper into what's new in 2020.2, what's new and what's coming in 2020.3, et cetera. So if you want to learn more about relationships or anything, just go ahead and hop on this YouTube channel, watch some videos. If you want to see it live where you can actually ask us questions while we're doing the demonstration, just reach out to me. If you haven't been invited, I'll be happy to invite you so you can add the Tableau Tuesday webinar to your calendar. The other thing that I do want to show you is just what's coming in 2020.3. And the best way to do that, to stay on top of everything, if you don't know, is to go to prerelease.tableau.com. And prerelease.tableau.com is our beta site. And this is where, I don't know why my internet is so slow right now, but this is where we can go ahead and view what is in the particular, whatever beta we're happening to be running. Right now we're beta in 2020.3, so I can just click on that. And you'll see on the left-hand side all the different features that are going to be available in that release. So we had a really big release of 2020.2, a lot of features. So this one is not so much, still some great new features coming, but not as much as like in 2020.2, but a couple of really good ones. One is, for those of you that use Tableau Prep, you would know that right now you can send your file output to either a CSV file or a Tableau extract, either Hyper or the old TDEs. But now we're actually going to be able to write to a database in Tableau Prep. So we'll be able to write to a file, or I'm sorry, write to a database table. And then of course we can leverage that database table within our Tableau visualizations. A couple other cool ones is grant role on sign-in, especially kind of an essential feature for those companies that have actually deployed Tableau enterprise-wide. Maybe they have an enterprise-wide license. Of course, they're not going to go and just license everybody in their entire enterprise. But what happens when somebody wants to get into Tableau, wants to look at a dashboard or start to analyze data? Typically, they try to log in. They realize they don't have a license. They have to find their Tableau admin and then ask for a license. And in this case, the Tableau administrator, server administrator, can actually set up an auto grant of a site role and a license for a particular, anybody that's coming in that's currently on license. So if you have leftover licenses, you still have licenses that haven't been deployed yet, and somebody tries to log into Tableau server, you can set it up to actually say, oh, maybe I just want to make those all viewers right now, and they can actually go and view things. And if they want Explorer creators, then they can pick up the phone and give us a call. So something like that. I mean, that's super important to some of our larger customers. And probably the other cool thing that I've been playing with lately is let's find it, predictive modeling functions. So we've always had some type of predictive capabilities in Tableau, but it's always been, number one, time-based, and it's just linear regression. I shouldn't say just linear regression, but it is just time-based calculations. Hey, look at my seasonality or look at all my trends for sales and predict out the next 13 months of sales. That's pretty simple. But now we're starting to get into more of the kind of exploratory data science with a couple of different calculations here. We have model quantile and model percentile, and these are like, you can think of these as table calcs on steroids, and they are absolutely table calcs. So what we do is table calc is obviously based off of the data that happens to be in the table in your viz at the particular time that you're writing the calculation, or that the calculation is running. And then what we can do is say, okay, maybe I want to predict sales or customer churn, and what are the different predictors, the other dimensions that I feel would help us make an accurate prediction of customer churn, for instance. So I can enter those dimensions as my predictors, say that I want customer churn as the target expression, and I want to be, in a, do I want to predict the median and say 0.5, or do I want like a 90% confidence interval and bump that up to 90 or 95%? And that will then spit out some more data for me to then analyze. So with a little more predictive capabilities right in the palm of our hands at Tableau. I will say that these are pretty complicated. So if you don't have your head fully wrapped around table calcs, you may want to leave this to the experts for now. But it is a pretty powerful piece of functionality that we're going to be delivering in 2020.3.
That's great.
With that, I think my time is all up. So I just open it up for any questions that anybody may have.
Yeah, so we have a few questions. I was hoping that you could take a look at those and answer those offline. And yeah, if you have any questions, please post them to the Q&A channel.
Yeah, and I'll just pop up my email address one more time. If you guys need to reach me or want to be invited to Tableau Tuesday, just send me an email, smartinez@tableau.com, and we'll get you invited.
All right, good deal.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, if you need to take any quick bio break, hurry up. We'll start talking about the Tableau Developer Program probably in about 60 seconds or so. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and I'll kind of preface what it is and why you should care, why you shouldn't start looking at Netflix or something else right now. So we saw some great presentations today. Earlier, we saw some things from Mark and Megan with some Excel uploads and things like that. We potentially saw some really cool things from Steve as well. And a lot of these things can be automated and simplified and streamlined through components of the developer program. And so that's really what we're here to talk about for the next 10 minutes or so, really high level. We're not going to get deep into coding and things like that. We want to get you excited about the possibilities beyond Tableau Desktop, what's out there, what you can do for yourself, your organization, your team. And there's tons of things out there. And we're really going to try to cover a lot of the big ideas and how you can get involved with that. Okay, so with that, the developer program is accessible at developer.tableau.com. At a high level, this is what the developer program allows you to do. It's got automation capabilities, which enables customers and partners to seamlessly integrate Tableau components into existing workflows. And we'll dive into what that really means. We've got extensibility. If any of you are using any of the Tableau extensions, this is great for integrating external third-party applications inside of Tableau dashboards. Extensions help light up the dashboards with engagement and interactivity. And they're dynamic. You can create custom vizzes and a whole lot more. And that's what extensibility gives you. Advanced analytics, Steve just kind of alluded to a lot of that capability that's coming with predictive and things like that. Well, within the advanced analytics realm, users can use R, Python using TabPy, MATLAB, and now even some of the extensibility analytics. And so we'll dive into a little bit of that in just a moment. The embedding. If you're looking to embed analytics into applications or web portals and really make Tableau your own and streamline it, if you've got an intranet, we saw SharePoint earlier from Mark. If you want to embed content into that and make that engaging, that's what embedding is all about. Allows you to integrate your Tableau dashboards, insights anywhere, mobile applications, internal portals, external facing websites. And we see a lot of that through the Tableau blogs, where you've got that embedded visualization in there. How do you do that? And we'll talk to that a little bit here. And then data connectivity. Data connectivity allows you to get data into Tableau through custom connectors. Now with a partnership with Salesforce and all of that backend, MuleSoft and great stuff, there's going to be even more capability to tap into pretty much any data at all and get access to that within your dashboards. At a high level, we've talked about kind of embedding capabilities and extension capabilities. The embedding is part of this JavaScript API. It allows you to bring content into web portals, web pages, applications, and that's really kind of what you're seeing over on the left. After all this, I'll throw up some links into the chat so you have that. You're going to get a copy of the slide deck, so no worries. Extension API, it allows you to bring in other applications into Tableau, chatbots, integration with Salesforce, maybe your ERP, EHR, whatever it might be. You don't have to leave your Tableau dashboard to do your work. You can be cohesive in that. And that's what the extensions API allows you to do. If you go out to the extensions gallery, .tableau.com, you can actually see extensions that are out there. Be mindful, extensions are only accessible in certain versions of Tableau, so make sure that that capability exists within your current version of Tableau and your organization, that they haven't disabled that feature. All right. With the different types of data dev features, the REST API is right up there with one of those. The REST API, the Tableau server client and TSM, all of these things are at a high level of what an administrator might do, or someone in your organization that wants to automate certain things. So again, we saw earlier from Mark, maybe an Excel upload. Maybe you want to automate certain processes of onboarding users or doing things with permissions or content, whatever it might be. This is how the REST API can kind of help you get there. So you can create, read, update, delete almost any resource within Tableau, sites, alerts, notifications, projects, anything that's out there could be automated and triggered through REST API. And I'm going to get you some resources after we're done to kind of take a look and deep dive into that. As I mentioned before, this TSC, this Tableau Server Client, this is kind of an offshoot of the REST API above. What this is really geared towards users that administer Tableau that want to automate certain features of the platform, sites, projects, users, permissions, etc., but without all the heavy coding. This Tableau Server Client, within a couple lines, again, you don't have to be a programmer to do this, and that was the whole point. You can leverage this Tableau Server Client to initiate things. Again, everything's right there on the use case on the left. Programmatically publish, download, extract, notify, all of this great stuff. And the Tableau Server Client is out there. TSM, we're going to skip that again. That's more for administrative purposes. But if you are a Tableau admin, server admin, online, all that stuff, this is a great platform for you to do automation into your Tableau server environment for production, restoration, upgrades, etc. Document API, while now it's somewhat documented, heavily promoted out there. It's been around for quite a while, and this was more of that undocumented feature within Tableau. If you've got content out there and you want to make modifications to workbooks or data sources, maybe your database has changed and you don't have the ability, or you don't want to do the ability to update 50 workbooks or data sources to point to a new thing. This is where the document API might come in handy, is for you to programmatically say, this is what it used to be, this is what it is now, click of a button and do that. Maybe usernames, passwords, things like that that might be embedded. These are all things that you could potentially use within the document API to change that file structure without the hacking. All right, so webhooks. This is a newer feature released in 2019.4. Webhooks are similar to APIs, but much simpler. There's platforms out there, IFTTT, Zapier, things like that, that you can leverage. What it is, it's a full range API with functions that can call, edit, retrieve data from your Tableau server or online. So if you build an application that connects with something and you need to have ways to maybe monitor, alert, notify, in the use cases here, have your smart speaker talk to you when there's an extract, maybe send an email, a Slack notification, whatever it might be. So these are trigger-based events that can occur within your platform, and you want to have something happen to that. Maybe again, like I said, send an email, Slack notification, alert something, whatever it might be. This is where webhooks leverages all that capability and can do things outside of the built-in, out-of-the-box Tableau stuff. And this is kind of just a quick example, highlight, of what the webhooks might be. Hey, tell me when things happen. There's a third-party interface, like I said, like Zapier or IFTTT or something of that. When an event happens, do this. And within a few clicks, that's all it takes. It does not require you to know a lot of programming, Python, JavaScript, all that. No. So do take a look at this. We're going to get you some links on that. Again, the metadata API, another huge one. If your organization is lucky enough to have data catalog as an add-on, you're going to get even more capabilities with this, but it's not required. In order to use the metadata API, your Tableau server administrator needs to enable a configuration. But once you have that enabled, you can start asking the Tableau server questions about your system. And some of those use cases you can see on the right, talk to me about, different data sources that might have these kind of characteristics, discover calculated fields, maybe where I've got some duplication, proliferating, whatever that might be. It really gets you into that graph database technology, and that's basically lots of relationships that you wouldn't be able to really do otherwise through joins on the back end of Tableau. So I see metadata API as really helping surface information about your content, your users, the behavior, through this interface. All right, so quickly we'll go through some data dev examples and then we'll turn it over to George. So again, the JavaScript API is really all about embedding analytics into web portals, applications, you being able to make it look and feel however you want, so you're not confined into that design or structure that maybe Tableau offers you. This may require you to know more than just a little bit of copy and paste JavaScript code if that's what you're after, but definitely doable. And I will really encourage everyone, at least if you're looking at doing any kind of embedding capability, check out that JavaScript API. We'll skip over the REST API. Again, mobile apps, not sure if anyone's using that, but there is a mobile app bootstrap out there. So if you want to start creating mobile apps with embedded analytics with Tableau, a lot of it's plug and play. A lot of it's been built out already for you, authentication mechanisms and interfaces and so forth. You just need to kind of, again, plug and play. Expanding embedded analytics with Ask Data. So if you are on a version that has the capability of Ask Data integration or accessibility, you can now embed Ask Data into dashboards itself to allow even greater features of self-service analytics, or if you are leveraging web portals applications, you can embed Ask Data into those. So this is a great way to engage your end users into them being able to ask questions about data without involving maybe the business analysts, kind of what Megan was talking to earlier about how UChicago is rolling out Explorer capabilities on self-service. Data science, advanced analytics stuff, we're going to go through this quickly. I'm not going to talk to this, but if you're doing things with Python, TabPy is a requirement, but capability is there. Super easy. RServe, R, if you're doing anything with that capability, you would need an R server instance, but you can easily tap into that with Tableau or Tableau Prep. Maybe George will talk to that in some of his analytic findings in his presentation, but definitely doable. Anyone using MATLAB? I don't know anyone, but if you are, that's also capable as well. What really isn't covered here is the extensions capability of this analytics, and this isn't the end all be all. There is more capabilities to do the advanced analytics and integration with extensibility. So all that is there through the analytics extension API. The developer program, again, this gives you early access to things that are out there, much like Steve was talking about with the pre-release. You do get a free development online site when you do sign up for the developer program. It is free, there is no cost to you, so you will get your own little slice of Tableau online. You will also get direct connection with the engineering team. They've got a direct Slack workspace that you will be able to join, connect, converse with everyone. You'll be the first to know, just like within the pre-release program, you're going to be in the know on what's out there, what's coming, how to integrate and how to use that. The community, we saw in the announcements, a new community platform is out there, the Data Dev. Take advantage of that. If you're brand new to this platform, fantastic. Hopefully, my screen is coming up here. If you do log into this developer program, go to developer.tableau.com. You can join now. Again, it's free. There is no cost to you. Tons of information about what we just talked about right here. Once you actually get into the developer program, the same site as pre-release, there's a lot of information. You want to know about extensions or the Hyper API, REST API, you can go out to the GitHub, you can go to samples, you can download things, there's training videos. Every week or month or so, the Tableau has a sprint demo where they cover various topics and go hands-on. I'm going to post some more links in the chat for if you want to get started, how do you do this? Tons of information. Again, you do not have to be a hardcore developer to get started in this. The development team has made it easy to start learning from the ground up. You don't have to be a coder today, nor in the future, but it would be helpful to know some of that technology. So that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the rest of the presentation over to George.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. I will share the screen. And just do a quick introduction. So those of you in the Denver group are probably familiar with me. My name is George Peck, and Denise and I have a company called the Blaze Group. We are actually now in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we started the Denver Tableau user group. It's been probably 6 or 7 years ago, and have seen it advance nicely through the years and move from various customer site to customer site. Generally, we meet quarterly. We, like a lot of groups, had a meeting scheduled for, I think, a February or a March timeframe, and that came to a grinding halt. And then this is the first meeting now we have done in a virtual capacity. In terms of what we're going to do later on in the year, can't tell you. Just not sure what we're going to do in terms of next meeting, but we'll kind of keep folks in touch with that and let folks know, what's going to be coming up with the Denver group coming down the line. Just a quick idea of a couple of websites that you might find interesting. Our website is theblazegroup.com. Again, we are an organization in Fort Collins. We are a professional services organization aimed at business intelligence tool sets, largely Tableau, still some SAP business objects in there. Our YouTube channel is a Blaze Group BI. That is largely Tableau content, but a little bit of SAP business objects for old times in there. So a Blaze Group BI, the YouTube channel, and then my email address, if you want to get a hold of me, you've got any questions, you have any follow-up things you'd like to check on, is gpeck@ablazegroup.com. And I'll also check the chat window here a little bit later on. If there's anything you need, I'll let you know. I'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So, question. Did I decide to visualize COVID-19 data? And this was a big decision I had to make. And I think a lot of us in data visualization had to decide how much, what visualization we're going to do about COVID. And when I began to see data visualizations and charts come down in, the February, March timeframe, I very quickly determined that COVID-19 was the opportunity for the most distorted, worst data visualization in the history of data visualization itself. And Tableau, fairly early in the process, began to address some of these things. So here's a blog post from Andy Cotgreave all the way back from March 9th. That's ancient times in COVID-19, right? And he took a very early visualization from the BBC and picked it apart. This is the British Broadcasting Corporation, not an organization that necessarily would expect, bad visualization to come from. But here was a bad example. And then while Tableau was building a curated data source, kind of a repository for COVID-19 data, they also did a blog post on 10 considerations before you create another chart about COVID-19. And this is all the way back to March 13th, ancient times. And this was one of the earliest charts we saw, was the flatten the curve chart. No real data even making that chart up, but it was a chart with, of course, some kind of opinion thrown in below the chart. So these things led me to very early on decide I simply was not, will not, and have no desire to do COVID-19 visualization. So I simply did not do it. It was tempting, I just didn't. I left all the bad visualization and all the distorted data to plenty of other people, and there were no shortage of them. So what I did decide to do was take a look at the payroll protection program, which we participated in. Many smaller businesses and some, in a sense, larger organizations were participating in. And it was initially, I'm not sure how much familiarity you have with the payroll protection program, especially if you're employed by a larger organization and life just kept humming along. But for smaller organizations that were impacted by COVID-19, there was a program to supplement payroll if you committed to keeping employees on, not dismissing them, maintaining payroll from some period last year. And then the Small Business Administration was loaning through private lenders money to help you pay employees for a certain period of time. So we're a small organization, 2 employees. We initially attempted to apply for a PPP loan through Wells Fargo, our bank. And if you are a Wells Fargo customer, you may be familiar with the issue they had in figuring out what planet they were on, up to and including the exhaustion of the initial payroll protection program fund stash. So we then found an organization called Cabbage with a K. I hadn't heard of them before. And they are just a portal, in essence, to a series of other lenders. And they were able to bring forward a loan to a Blaze Group from an organization called Cross River Bank. And you will see Cross River Bank in here quite a bit. So in any event, we applied for and received a PPP loan, as did many other organizations. And then under pressure, and after, of course, some political back and forth, the Small Business Administration finally released PPP data about 3 weeks ago. I think it was right around the 4th of July, over that 4th of July weekend. So I went out and found the PPP data, which consisted of a CSV file for each state and the US territory that participated in PPP. And then there was one additional file, a CSV file, for every participant that received a loan of over $150,000. And that particular table or CSV file included data for all states. So there was one all state data for over $150,000 loans, and then 50 plus individual files for under $150,000 loans for each state. The files were somewhat similar in structure, but not entirely. So I just have 2 sample CSV files loaded up here in Excel to give you an idea of what we needed to deal with. So the over 150K file consists of a loan range. This is simply the range of the loan a company received, not the actual amount of the loan. And we can discuss why the SBA would not release the actual amount of the loan to these individual customers, but they didn't do it. And they may be considering that now. I think they're being sued by any number of people for more data, but at least at the point that I downloaded this, over $150,000 loans were not specifically denoted with an exact dollar amount, just a range. There was detailed information for each of the recipients: the business name, their address, city, state, zip, a NAICS code, which is a code for their type of business, the type of corporation they have, and then a whole lot of unanswered optional questions about race, gender, veteran status, and so forth. So this is the over 150K combined for all states file. And then here is the file for Colorado, one of 50 plus individual state files. Well, here we have a specific loan amount. So the actual dollar amount of the loan, there is no individual business name. That's anonymized. But the city, state, zip, NAICS code, business type, many unanswered race, gender, veteran, and so forth values are here. So similar fields, similar layout, but not identical to this 150K and up file. So if you want to analyze all this together, which is what I wanted to do, how do we take 50 plus individual state files of a certain structure, a one table of over 150K loans with a slightly different structure, and get them all together when you can do some meaningful analysis on them? There were a couple of issues. The first issue is, if I want to analyze specific numeric loan amounts, I'm good with my under $150,000 state files. Here is an actual numeric loan amount that I can do analysis on. There's a measure. But here in the over 150K file, there is no actual loan amount. There is a loan range that's a string. I can't analyze this. So we have that particular issue to deal with, plus some fields in one file that don't match up to other fields in another file, but some common fields in both. And again, we want to analyze these all together. So I decided to make use of a little thing called Tableau Prep. And so I've got Tableau Prep loaded up here. And the first thing I wanted to do was bring all of these CSV files together and combine them into one combined data set. So the file names were by default coming in from the SBA as FOIA, so Freedom of Information Act dash, and then either 150K underscore plus CSV, that's for the over 150Ks for all states. And then for each individual state up to 150K underscore state name.csv. Well, there is an FOIA, which is the actual first 4 characters of the file name that's common. So we did a good old matching pattern union, where I'm simply taking FOIA star and unioning all those together in a wildcard union. That's happening here. Now, if we noticed in that data set, there was a NAICS code. And I can't remember what NAICS stands for, but it's a national something. It's a standard way of categorizing the type of business that you are. IT service, hospital, liquor store, we'll talk about that later, physician's office, you know, the type of business you are, as opposed to the business type, which would be S Corp, C Corp, nonprofit. So NAICS code is simply a number that indicates the type of business you are, but I want to know the actual description for that NAICS code. So I went out and found this table, and this is simply a NAICS code description table. It's got a numeric NAICS code column in it and a string describing the actual NAICS code itself. Soybean farming, oilseed, dry pea and bean farming, and so forth, depending on the NAICS code. So I now have combined these multiple CSVs together using a wildcard union. I am now going to join the wildcard union to the NAICS table on NAICS code so I can get my NAICS title, actual description of a business in the data set. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is join those together and union those together. Now let's talk about the union for a second. Because what happens in this case of a union is I now have a combined set of columns, including loan range, that's coming from one CSV file, but not the other 50 plus. Business name is coming from one CSV file, but not the other 50 plus. Address is coming from one of the CSVs, the over 50, 150K, but not the others, but it's here. City, state, zip, NAICS code, business type, and these are all coming from all of them, so they're being unioned together. Now in a union, if I've got no fields and tables, these fields are going to come in as null in my union. Now I have loan amount. Remember, loan amount is not existing in the over 150K file, but it's existing in all of the 50 plus under 150K files. So for my over 150K values, the loan amount's going to be null, but in the others, the actual loan amount's going to be there. And then file path is the actual file name originally coming into the union if I want to track back to which file it came from. So union, join, and now it's time to do some cleaning and prep. So let's talk about some of the cleaning I did. There wasn't a lot, but a little bit. Ensure that city was in fact defined as a geographic role, so we could get the globe icon on it and do some geographic analysis by city. The same with state, make sure that was assigned a geographic role of state province. Zip, make sure that is assigned a role of zip code, postcode. So this is going to permit us to do geographic analysis on those three dimensions. Now let's talk about loan amount. And this is where I took a little bit of liberty, because if we recall, in the over 150K file, all those big loans, there was no specific loan amount for reasons that only the federal government can possibly can understand. They just wouldn't tell us how much specifically they were giving to over 150K recipients. So there is simply in there a tier, the tier being A, 150K to 300K, B, 300K to 500K, or whatever those tiers are. So I create a calculated field, and I decide to take a little bit of liberty and assign an estimated loan amount to each of these larger loan recipients based on that tier. So I pick in the middle of these loan ranges and look at the 5 to 10 million and assign a 7.5 million value to that loan, a 2 to 5 million tier and assign 3.5 million to that, a 1 to 2 million tier and assign 1.5 million to that, a 350 to 1 million tier, assign 675 grand to that, and the 150 to 350 tier and assign 250 to that. So I'm looking at the loan amounts in the over 150K and assigning a value to the actual, the loan range, assigning an actual estimated loan amount. If I do not have one of these, then I'm assuming it's in the under 150K file and the actual loan amount itself is going to come forward. So in this case, the actual loan amount for the under 150Ks comes in. So this is some estimating here. So we need to understand that these are estimated kind of average loan amounts for the over 150K values. Now let's talk about another scenario. We have that loan range, the 150K to 300, the 300 to 1 million, and so forth, for the over 150K values. But if we remember, in the under 150K sets, there is no loan range string. It's not there. So what I decided to do was create that as well for the under 150K values. So I'm simply going to look at that loan range field. If it's coming from the over 150K table, it'll have a value in it. When I union to the under 150K tables, it will be null in the all the under 150K values. I simply look for a null of the loan range, assume then it's going to be under 150K, and to keep it nicely alphabetized with the others, I assign it a letter of F, under 150K, otherwise just put the original loan range value in there. Now, the best thing that we had fun with when we were looking at this is if you happen to participate in the PPP, you were aware of how quickly this thing came together. It came together in record time. There was a huge rush to get applications done. Each lender was accepting applications in a different way. Wells Fargo wasn't accepting any because they were trying to design some big, huge automated system to do it. In the meantime, the money's trickling away to everybody else who's doing it a different way. Cabbage had a common online application process that they then distributed to their lenders. I have a friend who's a banker in Southern Colorado. They did them by hand. They literally had customers call them or email them, and they filled out applications by hand. So for as many different application processes as there were about as many different spellings of cities and addresses. And when I initially tried to analyze this, the craziest way of spelling cities names, the craziest way of spelling addresses, the mixed case. So here, for example, is a city field, including a city of 156 Betsy Lane, another city of 37976 Road 222, and yet another city of 850 East Somoran Boulevard, Cass. Here's Abbeville, here's Abbeville, Abbeville, here's Aberdeen, here's Aberdeen Proving Ground. It was nuts. So I had Tableau Prep do its best at doing some geographic adjustments to city. So I was having it do grouping where it's trying to match the city as best it can to its internal geocode tables for city. It did a moderately acceptable job of cleaning up this geographic data, but certainly not perfect. We also had mixed case. Here is Aberdeen, Aberdeen, Abilene, Abbeville, and Abbeville are in lowercase. And if I scroll down, I'm going to see much more mixed case in here, Addison and Addison. So after I was doing my attempted cleaning based on Tableau geographic data visualization, built-in tables, I made that city uppercase. So this was the clean step. Now it's time to spit this, unioned, joined, cleaned data out. And I have several options. This is a peek, by the way, at Tableau Prep 2020.3. And look at the option to publish to a database table. And if I want to, I can connect to a database server and write this data out to database server. Nice new feature, one of the big new things in 2020.3. I just did it alternatively on my Tableau server downstairs, but I'm just, for this case, going to throw it out to a hyperfile on my desktop. So I ran that flow, and there is my combined PPP data, all 50 plus states in the under 150K files, all combined states in the over 150K, and then adjusted loan amounts, estimated in some cases, actual in other cases, and then other fields kind of modified. Now it's time to do a little bit of visualization. And I don't have any great, beautiful data visualization here. This isn't some Tableau public thing with, pictures of things and 5,000 colors and what I often find in Tableau public, which is some terrible data visualization practices. So it's very simple visualization that I just tossed together this morning before I came in, because now the visualization and the analysis is fairly straightforward. I'm just going to do a new worksheet and simply double click my loan amount. And if you heard about PPP programs and the amount given, you probably heard that it was somewhere around $550 billion. So here is my overall loan amount summed for every loan in the database, and a total of about $546 billion. Now, this is a Tableau 2020.3, so I don't have the number of records anymore. I have simply a count. I'm going to replace that. And this was in a total of about 4 million loans, 4,183,220 loans. So there's a real quick visualization to give you an idea of what the totality of the PPP program is. Now, if we want to look at this and break it down by range, and again, we understand that these over 150K levels are my estimated values. The F under 150, this is the only actual legitimate number I have here, because these are based on actual loan amounts. About $120 billion going out under 150,000. Now I've got my 150 to 350 category, about 92 billion. The 350 to $1 million category, 132 billion, and so forth. So you can see, actually, in the high category, the $5 to $10 million category, it's the actual lowest category where actual money was given. They were very large loans, but in totality, not that many of them. So I thought that was kind of an interesting visualization right across, or right from the start. Now this one is, somewhat interesting. Corporations, most at about 218 billion. LLCs, we're an S corp, so that was our number 3 here. Nonprofits, sole proprietorships. There was a big question in the beginning as if a sole proprietorship was going to be able to participate. They were. Here's where they got some numbers: partnerships, LLPs, and then there are some co-ops, independent contractors. And look at this. There's a fair amount of null data in here because there was very little, if any, data validation in the application process. You were requested to provide your corporation type, but in some cases you didn't have to. And so about $1 billion in money went out to somebody that we have no idea what type of a company it was. It may not have mattered, but we don't know. So this is by company type. Number of loans by company type, it's about the same, pretty much corporations, LLCs, and S corps, the most loans going out to them, not dollar amount, but by number of loans. Now, this next one is fascinating, the type of business. And this is where we have a benefit from that join to that NAICS table. Check out who the most money went to. Restaurants. Restaurants took $21 billion in loans because, don't know about you, but pretty much every restaurant in Fort Collins had to close its doors. Some of them survived, some of them didn't. Now check this one out. Physicians, number 2, lawyers, number 3, new car dealers, number 4, and so forth. I had a little parameter here. So our top 20 starts with restaurants, and our 20th is administrative management and general management. Let's look at 25 of them or 30 of them. Highway, street, and bridge construction are in here. CPAs, computer system design services, about 3.6 billion there. General freight trucking, just a little under 4 billion. Oh, let's go 40. The bottom in the 40, oil and gas operators, residential remodelers. This is fascinating data. So this is the dollars and who's getting them, the type of business. Now, how about this? The average loan amount by NAICS. This one killed me. The average loan amount of $2.3 million going to beet sugar manufacturers. Next, an average of 1.16 million going to motor vehicle metal stampings. Casinos, number 3 with the average loan. Softwood, veneer, and plywood manufacturing, the average loan of a little over $1 million, and so forth. So this is fascinating, seeing who was getting the money, the type of business that was getting the money. Now, let's talk about the lenders. And I found this one fascinating too, because I could not apply through Wells Fargo. It just was not going to happen. I went and did an initial loan application on like the second day after the PPP was announced. They accepted the loan application, but they would not process it. And all it did was start a spam bot from Wells Fargo sending me a daily email saying, we're here for you, we're here for you, we're here for you, we can't do anything for you, we can't do anything for you, we can't do anything for you, but we'll let you know when we can. And on about the 5th day, they added a little note to the we're here for you that said, you might want to apply somewhere else. So they were hinting to me that they weren't really going to be able to get their, poop together. So we did apply someplace else, and the we're here for you emails continued to come in from Wells Fargo up to and including the day that the PPP program ran out of money. And they continued to send the emails after that. And you couldn't call Wells Fargo, you couldn't email them. There was no way you could talk to a human and cancel your application because we got it from Cross River Bank. But we kept getting the emails from Wells Fargo. We're here for you, we're here for you. They finally added, after the PPP ran out of money, an option to cancel your application, which I did just automatically. And then they finally sent me an email saying, your application to the PPP has been denied. Reason, you canceled it. So did Wells Fargo give anybody any money? Well, they're like the 4th lender. So what they were doing, I didn't do the analysis on this, but I'm betting if I drag the category in here, that loan level, something's telling me the Wells Fargo accounts are all the over $150,000. They were looking for the big customers and the big money, and that's probably who they loaned it to. But they're still number 4 behind JP Morgan, B of A, Trust Bank, And this little place I'd never heard of before, Cross River Bank, they're in here at about number 10, loaning out about 5 billion. That's who, you know, took care of us. I'd never heard of them. We did it through Cabbage. Cabbage is down here. I didn't think Cabbage loaned money, but they're down here saying they loaned directly 2.6 billion bucks. So this was a fascinating visualization as well. Now let's talk about this one. I'm going to wrap this up in about another 2 minutes. Just look at some other interesting sheets here. You, again, were kind of on the honor system when you were applying as to stating how many jobs you were going to save. It was just a field. How many jobs will be saved with your PPP loan? And I did a little analysis on that earlier. And I had some interesting scenarios in that some of these huge loans of millions of dollars were saving 5 jobs. And some of these under $150,000 loans, in some case, there was like a $2,000 loan. Number of jobs saved, 500. So we didn't necessarily see super honest data there. But I was curious if there was a relationship, a correlation to the number of jobs saved versus the amount of money that was loaned. More money, saving more jobs. One would think that would be the case. So I popped together a little scatter plot here that's going to show me jobs retained in my x-axis, loan amount, let's say that's where they are. So let's see, jobs retained is my y-axis, loan amount's my x-axis, and there's not necessarily a correlation. It's kind of interesting. Both, and here's again that big category, the $5 to $10 million category, loaning about 36 billion and saving about 1.6 million jobs. So it's pretty much a correlation. We look up here and we're saving a whole lot of jobs in the under $150,000 category. Not as much money going out as in the 350 to 1 million category, more money going out, but saving fewer jobs. So this was a fascinating visualization too. There's a general correlation between number of jobs retained and the actual amount of money loaned, but not necessarily, especially towards these right-hand ones. Let's do a little bit of analysis just for Arizona and Colorado. So Arizona, Colorado, maybe put them both together. And it looks like Colorado overall getting a little bit more money than Arizona. This is dollars by Arizona versus Colorado, and in the categories. So again, over 150 being still the primary, loans here. Remember that these are estimates based on that mid-range number I gave them. So under 150 leading in both states, 350 to 1 million next, and so forth. So that's an interesting kind of a comparison between states. Number of loans by states, far more in the under 150 category, huge numbers of loans in that category, the fewest in the 5 to 10 million. But these are primarily in the under 150 category in terms of the number of loans. Now, this one was a fascinating visualization for a whole number of reasons. I wanted to see who got the big money, in particular by state. So let's narrow it down to Arizona. And we can see right away a little bit of a data quality problem here. Phoenix. Okay, most money going to Phoenix with an E, and that's 2.23 billion going to Phoenix. Scottsdale's next, Tucson, Mesa, Tempe, and so forth. Colorado, I'm going to assume Denver's number 1. Denver, the Springs, Inglewood, Boulder, Fort Collins, here we are, number 4, Littleton, and so forth. Now, here is the really fun part. We're going to grab the business name dimension and drag that onto rows after my city. We're going to go back to Arizona. And within Phoenix, One Stop Money Centers LLC, I'm going to try to sort this high to low. So in Phoenix, we have these high loan numbers in the 8 million range. Anyone know who W2005 WKI Realty is? They got a lot of money. Okay, Tiffany and Bosco, Teros. I could drag the NAICS description over after this. So the 2017 NAICS title after the business name. All right, so hotels is who this is. Tiffany and Bosco, lawyers. Star Corp, restaurants. Hayden Building, dog, temporary help services. This is all in Phoenix. I'm going to go to Colorado. Let's look down at good old Fort Collins. Now, if you're in Fort Collins, you might be familiar with two organizations, something called Madwire. Madwire, it's qualified as an internet publishing and broadcasting and web service portal. They have a product called, I think it's Sales 360. So they try to sell kind of an ERP system that they design here in Fort Collins. And then these guys, Orthopedic and Spine Center of the Rockies, they're a huge public radio supporter. I hear them underwriting public radio all over the place, but they both took nice, healthy $8 million give or take loans. Walker Manufacturing, Neenan. So these are fascinating because Gallegos, here's our trash hauler. So fascinating stuff, numbers, information, and details. So this is the PPP data, just kind of scratching the surface, but getting some fascinating insight into who has the money, how many jobs were saved, who was loaning the money. That's a quick peek at data from the Payroll Protection Program. So I'm going to send it back to Michael, and if I've got any questions on PPP data, I will be happy to address them.
All right, thanks, George. Amazing stuff that you can do with Tableau Prep. So if you've got a creator license with Tableau, you can go out and leverage that product as well. If any of you on the call are students, just a reminder, you can go out to tableau.com/academics and apply for free license for Tableau Desktop and Prep under the creator license for a year. So I want to thank our panelists and presenters. So George, Mark, Megan, Steve, thank you so much. And thank you to Denise and George for collaborating and teaming up this month with the Phoenix User Group. We appreciate it. We'll be back again, Phoenix, and another team up next month. So do join us. Put some links out in the chat, so do make sure you kind of copy those. But that's it. Have a great rest of the week. Be safe, and thank you, everyone. Take care.